Hey guys, this is Vincent Schilling. How are you? And welcome to another video. This video is on 6 Happy Thanksgiving myths, especially in regards to how Thanksgiving applies to Native Americans. I am Agusasne Mohawk, and I personally don't celebrate Thanksgiving, although it's okay if you do with your families, friends, etc. So, Native Americans and Pilgrims were besties. There was a 5th grader I spoke to in Long Elementary School in Ohio that when I was doing an online presentation, and I said, does anybody know stereotypes? And she goes, yes, Native Americans were besties. That's a stereotype and it's not true. So I applaud that young lady. Let me give you a rundown of how the settlers were to the native people. This is from the book Lies My Teacher Told Me, Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong by James Lowen. Here's what the settlers said. Next morning we found a place like a grave. We decided to dig it up. We found first a mat, and under that a fine bow, bowls, trays, dishes, and things like that. We took several of the prettiest things to carry away with us, and we buried the body up again. You know, this is what they did to the people who taught them how to plant crops of the area, how to harvest. This is bestie, right? Dig up the body and take all the stuff and cover the body back up. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the Wampanoag before 1616 numbered around anywhere, the approximations are about 100,000 people throughout southern Massachusetts and Rhode Island, but after 1621, about 2/3 of the native people had been killed by, let's just say, scuffles, disease, etc. It was not pretty. No besties there, friends. Let's be real. Scuffle is a nice word for murdering native people. Number 2, Pilgrims and natives came together to celebrate Thanksgiving. No. Actually, what was going on in 1621 is that the Wampanoag, there were a faction of about 90 native male warriors who were investigating the sounds of gunfire and cannon fire. The settlers of the area were celebrating a successful harvest, and so they were shooting off guns, and the Wampanoag warriors camped just outside of the settlement for about 4 days. They hunted and fished, and the settlers were really nervous, and they eventually just kind of out of courtesy decided to eat together to show that yes, we're just celebrating a harvest. And this was not Thanksgiving, because this act was never repeated again. It was a one-time event. This was actually created, the thought of the Pilgrims and Indians eating together was actually fabricated by Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War to give a sense of how, since there's so much discourse in the lands, this is a story of people coming together in unity. But it just wasn't true. Good old honest Abe. He lied. Number 3 myth. Turkey, cranberry sauce, sweet potatoes were at the first Thanksgiving, right? How many of these images do we see of native people sitting with pilgrims and, oh, they're all enjoying turkey and stuffing cranberry? This just wasn't the case. And take a look at this picture, by the way. Do you see how the native people are sitting there and they're knocking over all the bowls while the Pilgrims are kind of sitting there like a Martha Stewart magazine cover, all prim and proper? It just goes to show the sentiment of the time. According to, countless historians, a 1621 meal had nothing to do with turkey. It was more likely different fowl like geese, duck. Sweet potatoes were not yet grown in the United States, and cranberry sauce is a complete no because sugar would have been needed to make cranberry sauce, which was a completely unaffordable commodity back in that time. Number 4. The European settlers really appreciated the help of Squanto. Squanto was a native man who supposedly helped the settlers of the time and taught them how to harvest, but the fact of the matter is he was actually kidnapped, brought to Spain. When he got back, he discovered upon arriving back to the States that his entire community, his entire tribal community was gone, dead from disease or scuffles with settlers, killed. It was a very sad tale, very sad. Number 5, Pilgrims were the one who taught Native people about Thanksgiving. No. I can even tell you as a Mohawk man that there is a prayer of Thanksgiving that we do, a prayer of thanks, an annual prayer of thanks, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. Generations upon generations have been celebrating this air of thanks and giving thanks for everything that exists, to the winged ones, the creatures in the water, the trees, the mountains, and it takes considerable amount of time to give this prayer of thanks. Native people were not taught Thanksgiving. We are not savages that had no sense of thanks in our genealogies, and this goes for many tribes who have practiced the thought of thanks and thanks to the Creator and prayer and ceremony to give thanks for everything that has been given to you. So the thought that Pilgrims taught natives about Thanksgiving is really preposterous and looked at as many historians as the same. It is worth noting, by the way, that settlers were never even called pilgrims until the 1870s. The word pilgrim wasn't even used anywhere that they could be found until 1870. Number 6, and this is the biggest atrocity of them all. This is why we celebrate Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Day proper is actually a commemoration of the Pequot Massacre. The Pequot Indians were killed in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The colony members discovered a man who was dead in a boat. The colony members automatically blamed the Pequot Indians and decided to burn down the villages. And this includes hundreds, probably approximately 400 men, women, and children were burned to death, stabbed, killed, slashed. After the discovery of the body, English Major John Mason rallied his troops to further burn Pequot wigwams and attacked and killed hundreds of men, women, and children. So, Governor of Plymouth, William Bradford, at the time, he wrote, "Those that escaped the fire were slain with the sword, some hewed to pieces, others run through with their rapiers, so that they were quickly dispatched, and very few escaped. It was conceived they thus destroyed about 400 at this time. It was a fearful sight to see them thus frying in the fire. Horrible was the stink and scent thereof, but the victory seemed a sweet sacrifice." The day after the massacre, William Bradford, who was also the governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony, wrote, "From that day forth shall be a day of celebration and thanksgiving for subduing the Pequots, and for the next 100 years, every Thanksgiving Day ordained by a governor was in honor of the bloody victory, thanking God that the battle had been won." This is the biggest atrocity of them all, and this is why we celebrate Thanksgiving as a culture here in the United States. Take a look at this image. It's from a Thanksgiving Day celebration at Plymouth Colony. It's from the Library of Congress, and if you look, you can see, if you can barely read, how all of the native people are standing in line to drink pink firewater, while the pilgrims are waiting for hot dogs. Look who is who. It's very defining, it's very purposeful, it's just very telling. Now if you look at this image, it's one of the most popular images of the first Thanksgiving. And if you look at it closely, notice how this image by Jean-Léon Jerome Ferris has the native people sitting on the ground, and there's one native woman standing up who's being, woman schooled by the other pilgrim, and the other pilgrims are standing in a position of superiority. Even the dog is standing up. Even the child is standing up, while all the natives are seated in a very submissive way. This is by design. This is purposeful. If you really look closely at this image, in which the child is standing, the dog is standing, and if you also notice, the native people are sitting in very close proximity to where the discarded garbage of mollusks shells are. So they're at the same level as the discards, the trash, and the table of the settlers is clean and pristine. So this really is created purposely of white supremacy. And the inferior native people to the colonists. It's very clear, and this is by design. Take a look at photos like this, historical photos that you see, and how often this sort of thing happens. It's really quite remarkable. It may open your eyes to have this concept and to look at it in this way. It's very interesting. My eyes are opened once I realized it. So, it's very interesting and very worth noting.